Welcome all the participants. I think I am audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, you are audible.
So, just I will with starting with the antenna systems. We will cover that what are the design aspects for the next generation antenna systems. Where I will just try to cover that present in the scenario of 4G and 5G and expecting 6G. How the aspects of the antenna design will be there and what will be the challenges, and I will also try to share some of my research work, what we have done, and I shall try to bring some of the inputs, what can be useful for the future research. So in this, I will just take some little introductions, then the challenges for the future, and this some aspects of MIMOS antennas, what are torque, diversity gain, invariant correlation factors, which are the importance. This I have taken here because now if we talk about the future generations, we are talking about the two types of system. One will be talk about the MIMO system, massive MIMO systems, and going one beyond of that is the distributed antenna systems. So I will just link all these aspects, and because whenever the antennas are developed, we are doing the prototype, we are doing some mathematical equations, we are simulating them, and then we are fabricating and measuring. Then after all, the thing antenna should be deployable for the target. So I will try to establish a links that how important it is that the design is perfect when it is deployed on the targets. So if we see the basic electromagnetic spectrums, we have seen the bulky antennas when we were talking about terrestrial transmitter. Okay, we were talking and we were reading in the books. Okay, the antenna is one of the metallic structures. And now slowly when we are going, it has become integrated things that conventional antenna what we're having when we went from 2G to 3G and 4G, and of course now 5G, we are seeing when the lambda by 2 then it has that factor has become smaller, the antenna compactness have comes. So it was very happy things that now we were seeing that bulky antenna, then now we are seeing the antenna compactness is there, and lot of things it gave a good things area also when we are doing good things, when we were designing some, I think 5 years, 10 years back, when we are saying that, okay, we have designed some antennas for Bluetooth or for laptop application, and we have reduced the size, and now we got the good publications. But now, when we are talking about the 5th generation network and 6th generation networks, the things are becoming little challenges. Why it is like that? Because if we see, since this lambda by 2 factor is going to reduce, that the size, we are getting the advantage of itself because we are going for the higher frequencies, then the size of the antenna is reducing. So that we are getting because we are moving toward the high frequency. But now when we will talk about the antenna design for terahertz, we will not talk about the antenna size reduction. We will talk the precision maintenance because we are already getting one antenna size somewhere in millimeter and microwave meters. So that thing will not happen. But whether we are designing one antenna and with the precisions of measurements, we are using good materials of nano materials, or we are using some of the advanced materials for the manufacturing, what type of substrate we are using. So it will be really very challenging because all these factors will take place. This we can see. If we see, let us have one device, and I have tried to plot its radiation pattern. If you see on 15 gigahertz and 28 gigahertz. For data mode and tracking modes, you see the variations in 15 gigahertz. If this portion, red portion, I'm taking symmetrically, it is well isolated from non-radiating portions. But the same devices when operated at 28 gigahertz, these things, so you can see the effect that all of these radiation things have been distorted. So what does it mean? It means that these are the challenges. These are the challenges for the 5th generation. Now we can understand when we were going to devise somewhere around 95 gigahertz, how the shape will be there. So it will be one of the interesting things that we have to see that how our devices can be mitigated in such a higher frequency and in such environments. Likewise, here at the 55 gigahertz, this is a device which is hold in hand, and these are the this array 1 and 2 here. So when I'm holding it with some hand and it is away from this, we can see there is the radiation pattern we can see clearly. But whenever the finger is touched, we can see subarray the effect. If we say this is a subarray 1, we can see how much it is getting distorted whenever in the vicinity of the hand. So it is very interesting to understand that whenever we are going for such a high frequencies, what types of antenna, its placement. Because if we see the 95 gigahertz, we are talking about very small antennas. They will be placed somewhere in the vicinity of other RF components, other things. How it has to be there, and ultimately it has to be put in some case. And what types of radiation characteristics it will have. So now I will just start. We are aware about these are the basic equations of microstrip antennas. So these are if you see the Balanese standard books, you can get these things. Length, we are calculating length. Then we are seeing the fringing effects of the devices, and then we are seeing that width. So we can calculate a particular this one. We are getting a particularly narrow band frequencies. So the question was there that when we are talking about the printed antenna, of course, they were the narrow bandwidth antennas. Then there were some techniques we have to get up, and we have make them a wideband antennas. That is a standard practice. Slot loading. We were using slot loaded patching techniques. Then we are using the different like the spiral antennas, other things. So we are getting some broadband type of things. And if we see in the early beginning, if we see this rectangular microstrip antenna and other standard things, which were the standard sizes and other things, there's a lot of mathematics is there. There's a lot of mathematics for their dominant mode and dominant frequency calculations and all the boundary conditions. And slowly, when these antennas have been come to for the different application. Now today we talk, okay, the school going kids are there, and we can put some antennas for some Bluetooth connectivity, ad hoc type of connectivity. So a lot of things came and antennas, and due to availability of this software, HFSS is there, CST and other things are there. So you can just go and do some device and you can see that how it is resonating. So this mathematically linkage of these particularly upcoming antenna that is missing. So that is in another way, if you see, that is a good research gap. Whatever the antennas we are available today, if we see many research paper on IEEE transaction and other even the transaction levels papers, we can find there are small gaps where we can bridge. If we have good mathematics concepts and we read the conceptual books and we read the earlier antennas, if you see the standard horn types antenna and other type antenna, if you see some papers of 1980 or 1975, there is very classical mathematics you can get. So this is input for the future design, that if today's antennas, what we are having the survey, if you do a good survey and if you bridge with a good mathematics inputs and you represent your antenna, I am sure it can lead you very good publications. So there are some standard techniques, as we are aware that for these antennas, there are some we can change the defective ground into defective shapes. Then we can use the different types of structure, antipodal structures. We can use the different stacked dielectric sheets of the similar types, or we can incorporate of different types. So these are things we are helping us to enhance the bandwidths. So yes. So now, if we are having this standard narrow bandwidth, so we can go toward these things with the different types of things, so we can have the better bandwidths. Now I say that antenna design is a multi-engineering perspective in date of today. It's not earlier type that antenna engineer, he should have a good electromagnetic theory knowledge, and he should be aware that how it has to be designed, how it has to be see so what are the performance in its charts, and how it is happening in your near field testings or where in the far field testings. But today the antenna design has become a challenges. But why it is like that? Because if you see from 4th generation to 5th generation, and if you see that antenna which has to work on terahertz frequency, so even the copper behavior, what it is expected to be up to 20 gigahertz, we are not getting the same behavior somewhere on the 90 gigahertz. So we have to understand that how this antennas for future generations, that what are the optimum materials, because the thickness of the material will reduce to great extent, how we can use such antennas for the applications just like power handling capacity of the deployment in some transmitter types of antennas. Otherwise, if that work is not done, then these types of antenna will be restricted only for some ad hoc network type of connectivity, Bluetooth network connectivity, where the power requirement is very small. So this is very challenges, that what type of material to be used to substrate, what type of material used to the patch, and after that, how these materials are to be integrated in the proper fashions. Then after the putting all these things, So therefore, I say that it is today the material engineers will play a good role. So the antenna engineer is required to be a good knowledge of the materials. That is one of the things. And of course, the electromagnetic theory is not going to change. Bonding conditions are not going to change. Mathematics is not going to change. So that linking of all the things with this mathematics, it is very important. So we need to have a sound background of electromagnetic theory also. And fortunately, or unfortunately, I don't know, but we are available. We have good software tools. Why I tell it fortunately? Because the software tools are there. So we just start the design antenna for the software without doing the mathematics exactly. So somewhere it gives the things, okay, this patch is not working, that patch is not working, this cut is not working, and a lot of time is wasted in spite of just we can sit and we can do some mathematics on the antennas that actually what we have to do. So that things, these software tools have the advantages and disadvantages in the both ways. But since we are using this software, if you see HFS, CSS, MicroStudio, if you see when you're simulating one model in the CST and there is the mesh sizes. So choosing the proper mesh size, and there are these types of simulation parameters. We have to be very careful about that, because if we are not choosing the proper parameters, then what will happen? What we are simulating, and when we are going for the fabrication, the result will be different. So it will be really a great frustration, because here you put a lot of times and you come to some patch, and if the mathematics is not done, again it is a more problem, because the design what we are having we are not confident because how it is behaving by chance. So that is very important that we have to link it with it's working with proper mathematics, bonding condition, other things, and after that we should be aware of the knowledge of these softwares. As I was telling that if you take the CST MicroStudios, now you are selecting proper mesh size. If you see the different mesh size, if you give, they can give you different results. The S1 parameter will be different. If you are selecting a very precise S1 parameter, it needs very computations, big systems, big RAM requirements and other things. So computational requirements will be very high. And if you are selecting very small mesh sizes, you may lose some of the results. And we have to be very particular about that, how this software is behaving and what is expected. So somewhere we should have an estimate, and this is very important. After that, when the antenna is there, then after course you have to see the fabrications. So you have to be very expert today, because now we are talking about the microwave fabrications. And I think earlier it was there when we were designing some antenna, then we were fabricating, okay, one PCB is there, then we are giving it, somebody is doing it. But tomorrow, I think when we are talking about the distributed antennas, when we are talking about the mesh MU antennas, particularly for 5th generation 6 antenna, it will not like that. Antenna fabrications, which will be of very small sizes, many antennas, it will be really a challenges work, and engineers are expected to be very expert in the fabrication. So in future, the fabrication of antenna itself will be very challenges and very high, quality and precision types of work. So whenever these types of antenna will be designed, and after that antenna measurements. Now earlier the antennas, when we were taking one antennas, okay, single antenna, we were going to measure and we are putting some probes. But now the future antennas will not be like that. Why it will not be like that? Because they will be either of the MIMO types of networks, or they will be mesh MIMO network type, or distributed antennas, and they will be configurable and type antennas, so smartly managed antennas. So we can understand, if we have a grid of n number of antennas, people are telling, okay, we will deploy somewhere around 400 or 500 small distributed antennas, and these antennas, there will be some algorithms we will operate in such a way. When it is working as a receiver, there will be certain antennas, and when there's some transmitter has to work, then some antennas to be combined in such a way that power handling capacity has to work. So these types of calculation will be requirement of the future generation network, which will be very challenging. So these types of testing, when we talk about the testing of particular, because if you see the combination of antenna working as a receiver, working as a single transmitter antenna, or there are so many antennas are there, they are combined to handle this power handling capacity and other things. So I think in this scenario, I say that these future generation antennas will be a multi-engineering perspectives consisting of all these aspects. I just now I come to the practical scenario. This was one of the antenna I have taken for my research work. So these antennas we designed for 5 to 40 gigahertz, and few concepts of, if you see this this area. This was the defective grounds, and this is the lower portion of the antennas. And this one is the upper portion of the antenna. So these are the patch, radiating patch, and with the help of this taper feeds, this antenna has been fed. So I have combined, one is the defective ground. We have not taken a full ground, we have taken the defective grounds, that is one of the specs. And then we have taken these radiating patch antipodals. This is the top and this is the bottoms. So this portion will radiate from the top and bottom, that is the antipodal aspects. Then there is the taper feeds. Feeding concept, if you see the proper matching of the feeding concept, advantages of taper feeds. So all these aspects were studied properly, that what are the advantages of the defective grounds, what type of shape it could be, and what type of, if you see interestingly, even in this design, if you see the top portion is combined with the bottom portion with the help of a shorting pins. So even that shorting pin, when you are putting, and particularly if you are talking about a 6th generation network, if you talk about the terahertz, you can understand even a short pin has its inductive effect, its capacity effects, and we can understand that how much it will affect. Even it is even 5 to 40 gigahertz. There was a lot of investigations on putting a pin when it is joining the upper portion to lower portion. So this is the very serious concerns. Like that also, then when we'll talk about the distributed networks, today we are talking about, okay, strip line feedings, then we are talking about coaxial feedings. Even those things will have a serious consideration, serious studies, that how a coaxial cable, coaxial feedings or other feeding techniques will really behave at 95 gigahertz. So in this work, a lot of work was done and some empirical formulas. So just like if I show you in the books, if you get these types, if you see bow tie printed antenna, there is a standard formulas which you got in the books. So like that also a lot of hard work was done, and we have proposed these antenna, these formulas. So these are based on empirical results and other things. So if somebody is going to design these types of antennas, and they want to understand what is the size and what is things, and if they are using this del F and FR, these results, so they will fit very nicely. So this has been done for the dominant mode, TM010 modes. Now here I want to put that for the researcher who really want to take this work for their things, that we know that it is not only TM this 010 mode, there can be TM020, TM002 modes and other modes which are happening in the this microstrip antenna, and these overlapping modes make it a broadband antenna. So if somebody is taking these that how this resonance is happening and can devise some mathematic formula, it will really lead to a very, very good quality of the research work. Now, of course, it is not that easy, because what length we have to consider, another thing is there. So I will just give an idea. If you go in CST Microwave Studio and you see the surface currents distributions, if you see 6.8 gigahertz, the surface current distribution is coming like that, then 10.7 and 40.2 gigahertz. So here, if you see the shape and the sizes, multi-mode, you can see the fundamental mode resonance 6.80 bit has been taken, and 40.2 gigahertz, the multi-mode resonance is taking place. We can see from the shapes, and perfectly, if you use the techniques, mathematically classic techniques and area integration for these areas, we can come towards the empirical formula which we have done here. So with the help of these things, I think this can be interesting things for the designer who can take up this work. Now, as I started, okay, in the beginning we do, okay, we will take one of the shape. Sometimes if we are not doing so mathematically, then what will happen? That shape may work on the particular, but when we are going to prove our work, then one of the things is very important is this parametric study. It is very important that we have to select at least minimum of the antenna parameters, and we have to vary those parameters so that we can see that integrity of the system should be there. It means that, for example, I have taken LP1 and LP2, these are the two parameters, and whenever I am talking the resonance, some resonance is happening at 7 mm, and when I am going to change this dimension to the 9 mm, that means the length is going to be more, that means the resonance should shift toward the lower frequency. It should have some, formal types of happening. So it should not happen that whenever I am taking LP1 7 mm and when I am going from 7 to 9 mm, and it is behaving in another way. When I'm going back to 5 mm, then it is behaving another way. So whenever I am changing any parameters of antennas towards the plus and minus, they should obey the fundamental theory of electromagnetics. Just like whenever the length is more, that is, the resonance should come to down, like that the parametric study. So whenever we are designing something, so this parametric study is very important to decide two things. It will, first of all, it will give you an idea that whether my design can be more optimized or not. And second things, this parametric studies will help me to prove my antenna. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible, please? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So this was the simulated and measures the performance of the antennas that we have taken from 5 to 40 gigahertz, which are in the line. And for these antennas, we have calculated some group delays and the beam widths. And now, whenever this antenna has to be deployed for the particular applications, there are two things: that when this antenna is put in some devices, how this antenna will behave as to the independent testing. For example, you are putting some antenna in your mobile system, then how it see the other mobile, it will be on the one corner of your mobile device, but for other device, it will see as a parallel, ground. So there are the concepts mathematically. If you see, that is the infinite ground concept. There is semi-infinite ground concept or finite ground concept, depending upon the length of the devices where it is deployed. And some mathematics is already available in the papers, so we can link our devices when these devices are deployed in some applications, just like in mobile applications. So we assume that the devices where it has been there, that is the extended grounds. So extended ground, it is more than 5 lambda of the length. I think it is infinite ground. Then there is some mathematical concepts are there in the standard papers. We can employ those and we can come. But idea is there that whenever an antenna you are putting one device, it should behave similar or better. So that is very important. So here we have tried to put this device with the extended grounds of the one size. This antenna was put somewhere one of the size of the mobile set, and it has worked well. And after that, we see that the mobile devices can be somewhere is using some glass, somewhere using some Teflon material. So whenever it is deployed in different types of things, it should be fine. So that study was also done for these things. So based on these papers, we try to put it, and we got this work published in one elsewhere, International Journal of Electronics and Communication, in somewhere in 2020. So after that, we have taken one more, target-oriented antenna, which was design of 24 gigahertz ISMM band MIMO antennas. So here we started this antenna design from the very beginnings, where we took a rectangular patch and we made it to resonate somewhere around the 28 gigahertz. And as we have seen, we can use some slots and other things where we can improve the antenna. We can bring this resonance frequency down. So where we have introduced the 2 slots in this antenna, and after that, this resonance frequencies was brought out somewhere in 24 gigahertz. So we can understand now, without changing the size, we are bringing this frequency down. That means we got the advantage of the size reduction of this antenna. So with introducing these slots, we have just bought this size reductions, and now the antennas are resonating somewhere around the 24 gigahertz. Now the thing is there, we have innovated one of the idea that okay, we have this one element is there. If we combine one another element and we give it a shape of some array antenna designs, then we can enhance the power handling capacity. So when we did it, when we combined with the proper power divider, of course you can say it is a power combiner in another way. So then this is the gain single element what we were getting, and now this is the gain what we were getting with the double elements. So when these double elements were added, then after that we have put in a proper MIMO antenna structures. So this is the MIMO structure. One is, and we are taking antenna element 1 and antenna element 2. So idea was just to reduce the size at 24 gigahertz and to enhance the gain, and we did it. And then the coupling structure, if you see, If you see, the defective ground is a very important thing in MIMO systems also to improve the isolation and other things. So we have this shape of defective ground. We have made the decoupling structure in shape of defective grounds. And of course, here also we did some parametric studies and patch width from 5.5 to 6.6 mm. You can see here when the length is made from 6.6 mm, then the resonance has been shifted towards the lower frequency, and when the length is little low, then the resonance has shifted towards the high frequency. So we have done it for S1 and as well as S22 parameters. So we can see that integrity of our design is perfect because it is basically behaving, it is basically obeying the laws of electromagnetics which should happen. So defective grounds, as I told, they can be very useful for isolation performance. So step-by-step evaluation was done. So first of all, we have taken one defective plain grounds for this antenna design. And if you see, we feed one signal here at 24 gigahertz. We excited this element, and this antenna element was terminated with proper impedance. So, but we can see even this has been excited. We can see this some radiation, even a significant radiation which was not desired, because this is radiating and terminated, then no radiation should come here. So slowly we tried to devise one defective ground. When we devised this type of defective ground, we could see that in this case the input was here, and in this figure the input was from this side, from this, and this was not there. So but still these were the two elements, but other two elements still it was this part. So there was some interferences, but later on when we came to the optimum design and we fed one signal here and we terminated here, this element is working very perfectly, and this and there is no problem, any radiation. So there is significant isolation improvement with this. So we can see whether this is it has been evaluated, and this antenna also we have seen from S parameter also and from this also. So defective ground implementations as a for isolation performance, we have done a good ideal design. Then of course these are some things. This is the fabricated antenna. We got it fabricated. Now this is what the things I want to share with the future designers, because now this is even the antenna which we are designing 24 gigahertz, and now we are talking for the antenna design somewhere around 95 gigahertz, so we can understand where the size will go. So again, even for this antenna, when we were going to design with a lot of difficulties, we could get fabricated at IIT. So that is the interesting things, that antenna fabrications, when the size becomes small, it becomes very challenging for us. So this was there, and we did some experiments on these things. We found good as parameter. If you see S1 and S22 parameters, and we got a bandwidth around 4.17 gigahertz. It was a fair good bandwidths, and sufficiently if you see S12 and S21 performance, yes, that isolations, the performance is better than -40 dB. So I think it is a good design. When we are designing these antennas, particularly for future applications, we will be designing. Then one aspect will be that antenna efficiency for the band where they are operated. If we are designing one antenna in such a way, for example, here we are taking example, if you see 22 to 28 gigahertz, we are defining certain frequencies. Let us see here. We are defining here 4.17 gigahertz, somewhere from 22, somewhere on 26. And here, if you see 20 to 26, if you see the efficiency, and after this, if you see these plots, we should have a sharp depletions. I am not needed antenna here to be efficient because it is going to out of band. So why it is important? It is important because for the future generations of the antenna systems, I need the antennas which should be deployed without the help of the band pass filters, so that the size of the devices should be less. So if the antenna itself is, no types of antenna for that particular applications, then it will be very helpful. So if we see the efficiency plot, there should be sharp depletions of the plots towards the undesired of the band. I want to share three very important parameters when you are going to design any MIMO, when you are going to design any massive MIMO, or when you talk about the distributed antennas of future generations. There are the three aspects is there. One is diversity gain, one is envelope correlation coefficient, and then there is the total active reflection coefficient. So if you go to the standard books, there are some mathematics is there. If you know, you have this in S1 and S2 parameter are there, you can just simply put these values there and annual correlation coefficient will come. And if you go for CST Micro Studio also, there are these features exist there. So you can compare your work with mathematics and there. So you can take a number of sample of S11 and you can calculate the annual correlation coefficients. And when you are doing on CST Micro Studio, you can directly put it and it can do. So there are two techniques. One is on S1 parameters and another one is on the radiation patterns. So this ECC null correlation coefficient is basically for understanding the mutual coupling coefficient between the antenna elements. So ECC value should, because the coupling should be very, very less, as I discussed in earlier defective ground we have done. So it should be very less. So what is the appreciable value? Around 0.5. So invalid correlation coefficient, where you talk about the MIMO system, massive MIMO system, and even if you talk about the future system, these equations are going to be whole here for your next generation systems also. So like that, we can calculate these calculations, and this is when we are talking, or there is the thumb rule is there when we talk related to one antenna is there, which is very efficient. Let us say it is more than 80%. Then we should use based on these radiation patterns. And when the antenna is not much efficient, you can use the equation which is based on S1 parameters. This has been already a lot of work is there. Why it has to be there? There are some research papers are there. There is a comparison that how the ECC is behaving when we are taking on S11 parameters and when how we are ECC is happening when we are taking the radiation parameter. Their comparisons of a efficient antenna of a low efficiency antenna, but the thumb rule is when the ECC should come around 0.5. Here, if you see, we did it with the both. We did it with the radiation patterns also, and we did it for S1 parameters also. So almost they are similar only. So you can see these things. Our is this one is, and one more thing is there, diversity gain. So diversity gain is basically the formula is 10 under the root 1 minus EC square when and this annual correlation coefficient is less than diversity gain. Of course, it will be improved. So it will come 10 and if this come 1.1 minus 0.5 somewhere 0.00. So approximately it is 10. So it will in your result it will come this flat. So these results you can also represent for your papers and for in time giving CST Micro Studio also they are facilitating these results directly. So this can be from simulation point of view. You can use those there also and validate your work with some of the mathematics. Like that, total active reflection coefficient is a figure of merit or view for efficient performance of minima for multi-port antennas. So when we talk about the multi-port antennas and multiple antennas which we are using, so this TAR calculation is very important. So how we do this? First of all, we calculate the total power available for all the ports. What is the power available? Now, what we are expecting, whatever the power is available for all the ports, that should be radiated. So whenever what is available, that is radiated, nothing is left. That means it is the idle antennas. So, and another way, one antenna is there. What is happening? There is all the power we are putting on the port. Nothing is going to be reached. There was no antenna. So there is a comparison between the idle antenna and the non-idle antennas. So antenna will lie between those things. So based on that things, we can plot this type of. So now, interesting thing is there that one thing is there that what is the antenna efficiency and how much the antenna is efficient. One thing is there, and another thing is there that because this antenna has to be associated with the different LNBC, then there will be equalizer circuits, so they will create some phase difference. So if you see this equation, this is a standard equation for calculations. When this phase becomes 0, then it becomes S1 and S1 parameter. Let's see this whatever the plot I am it will be a single plot. This is the idle station. If you see taking the output scale, and if you see the value, if it That means that becomes same. Then 0 divided by x, it becomes 0. So in ideal situation, torque value should be 0. And when you're taking logarithms, it will go like this, -5 to -25, somewhere like this. So this will be the shape of the torque, and this is very important parameters for the design of MIMO, massive MIMO, and other future generation network and designs. So this all was taken, and again we got another publication in Elsevier in 2020 or 2021. Design of MIMO planar and 24 Farad communication and sensor applications. Yeah, 21. It was in 2021. Likewise, we had taken one more interesting work. The idea was there only that how these types of shapes, this here we take the antenna of the fan shape. So if you see exponential, if you see the nature of these shapes, these are the exponential. If you say e raised power x plus some constant and e raised power minus x some constant. So based on that, also we can say that these types of non-linear shapes can give you a design for the broadband antennas. So when you want to design the band antipodal structures and use of the fan shape structures, these types of shapes using of the defective, here you see this defective ground, we have taken defective out, all it has been aged out and it has been fabricated. Only this is antenna defective ground, which is helping us to achieve the better bandwidths. So the first antenna what I discussed, that was antipodal structure. We took a idea how a broadband antenna from 5 to 40 gigahertz can work. Then we taken another idea that how antenna for deployed for particular applications, 24 gigahertz, that was the application specific antenna. Then we understand that there, if you see the present scenario, if you see the communication systems now, we are going from 4G to 5G and even for the 6th generation. So the 6th generation, as we are saying that whenever this frequency, we have a better spectrum available and more bandwidth is available, but the limitation of this is, if we see at higher frequency, if you see the model of the channels, it will be very sensitive to the noises. It will be limited because of the small power will be there, because we cannot have that much powerful antennas at that frequencies, and so these will be the limitations of those frequency. And when you are talking about you are in a moving conditions, somewhere it is there, the channel is very dynamic. So in that situation, the performance of these systems will be degrading. So what is the requirement? What is the solution? What is the way out? The way out is there that if you are in a stable situation, your transmitter is very near to your receivers, and with a proper dynamic control, you are controlling its power. Yes, you can control the power of that things, and you can have a better bandwidth. And automatically, just like we were doing very early in CDMS for control system, the same concept here for the advanced generations will be used to have a proper. But whenever we are coming in the situation when the channel becomes itself noisy, then you have to shift from that band to lower band. So here, if you take the example, we designed one dual band antenna, which was proposed that this antenna should work into 20 to 30 gigahertz and 50 to 70 gigahertz. So there are some applications, if you see wide gig applications are there and other things are there. So whenever our channel is stable, less noisy, so it will be working in there, that channel. And whenever this error rate, BR rate is going to degrade to a certain level, it has to switch over to the lower transmitter. Of course, we will not get that as bandwidth. So idea of designing such antennas, there is also good works we can design. And this idea, if you are really going for some antenna design for 6G generation, you can combine these types of antenna which will be working parallelly for 4G and 6G, and depending upon the channel requirements, this antenna should behave and selected accordingly. So here we calculated this gain radiation efficiency of the antennas for the both 20 to 30 gigahertz and 50 to 70 gigahertz. And then we use this FR04 materials here. Then a little work it can be done. It can be interesting things when you are doing for 5th generation. How comparison of, there are few paper I have seen, one graphene comparison of the behavior of graphene and copper at higher frequencies. those things can be interesting. Here I have taken the substrate, I have taken only FR, and just I tried to change the thickness. If you see thickness, when I am using the more thicker materials, then I'm getting the advantages more battery and more wider bandwidth as compared to 2.4. But of course, my antenna will be bulky. This was the earlier work, but in future I can just give an idea of the same things. If you are doing that, a comparison between the different materials, that how those materials are behaving at 55 gigahertz, how those materials are behaving at 95 gigahertz. Because for the future challenges, I think for the antenna designer, particularly in India, the major concern is going that where are the facilities. Even I could not find some sufficient facilities, testing facility more than 20 gigahertz or 40 or 50 gigahertz. Somewhere few IITs and some or DLFs. So this will be very challenges, that where you are going to validate your work and where you are going to fabricate the antenna. So that will be very challenges work for the future design. So until unless those types of facilities come, I think some these types of mathematical work, you can compare the different materials at higher frequencies, and then you are saying their different thickness of the material, what are the effects of the substrate and other things. So this can be also a good design idea for the upcoming work. So I just want to take I have just taken some idea how the antennas basically can be done for for the broadband applications, for particular deployed applications, for the multi-band application. These are the three categories broadly where we can see how we can take up the works for the future work, how we can incorporate some mathematics and other things which can really can help a good publications. So now I'm coming for antenna measurement aspects. So because whenever we are going to design one antenna and it is fabricated, it is very important that it should be well measured, because at the end it has to be deployed on the target. Today you are designing some antenna, tomorrow it has to be put on some mobile applications, it can be put some RFID. If you see the biomedical application, we can understand the importance if antenna is not working properly, how difficult the situation is there. And the antennas, it's not just like if you see the lab, we are developing some prototype, but when this antenna is to be deployed, for example, if we see the case of the aircraft. If aircraft today it is standing on tarmac at Jaisalmer, whether it is very hot and 55 degree and it is taking off, and if you see whenever you go to air 6 degree per kilometer, that is the temperature variation, and in the short span of time it goes around 8 kilometer or 10 kilometer, 1060 there. So you can understand 60 degree of that thermal shock. It will be just in the ice after some times. That antenna has to behave in those environments also. So this is very important things, because from the publication point of view, it's fine that we can get good things when we are relating some things mathematics, we are adding other things. What I have covered, that and 3 or 4 idea I have just tried to give for the publication, they will give you good classic application. But if the time is there, I think we should think something about the antenna measurement aspects also, so that practically we should understand that where this, because a lot of work we are doing for this prototype and this, and if we really starting from antenna, we take some target, okay, we can use this antenna for that application, or you have certain understanding with some industry which really need antenna and you start to work for them, then it will be really interesting and it will be really fruitful work for the society. So when we are taking antenna measurement aspect, measurement antenna and probes, they are very important. Then accuracy of measurements, it is very important that our system should be very accurate. Then precision knowledge of the system error and budgets. So we should be aware that what is the system error budget when we are using some spectrum analyzer, their calibration, when we are using some power meters, their calibration, sensor calibration, probes calibrations, and other things, it should be there. So that should be very clear to the minds. Then we can get a true picture of the measurements. And then there is the comparison studies. What happens that we have the near fields, we are testing our antenna in Noack chambers, and we are going for some far field deployment, and we are testing, and we are seeing that the results are similar or they are different. If they are not similar, then what correction factor we can add, so that, because every time we cannot just go to the far field measurement. So if a lot of studies done, a lot of charts we compare for some standards of antenna, and we put our antenna somewhere, so we can compare the things that when my antenna is working in this fashion in near fields on the Noack chambers, or its simulated results are there, then I can get a little fair idea that how my antenna will work in the practical deployment. So that comparison studies is also, which can come with a lot of experience, that is very important. And these antennas and probe calibration, when we are using some measurement facilities, so there will be some degradations of the probes. Measurement antennas may having some calibration requirements, and even the mechanical movements when we are rotating antenna for theta and phi particularly, so continuous rotations. So there may be some play which can affect the measurement that has to be taken into consideration. There are certain, if you see some standards, if you see antenna measurement itself, it's a big field, and there are certain standards that of the tolerances should be there. So generally, distances when we talk around, it should be there. When we talk about tolerance 5% frequency, when we are using a frequency plus minus 2, and measurement receiver that amplitude levels deviations not more than plus minus 2 dB, and time waveform, that waveform should not be distorted more than plus minus 5%. There, that interesting is there. Then now you are doing some measurement in some manual chambers, and after that somebody has come and he has put a lot of equipments, and of course those equipments have their own performance. These are very important things, that your facility should be minimum occupied with the excess personnel and equipments. Of course, there are some overload precautions. There are sensors. If they are overloaded, they will either get destroyed, or there may be possibilities that they cannot give you good results. And then, what the more is the human safety. There may be, if you are going to test these antennas for deployment in some earth stations, satellites, earth stations, or some this type of application, there may be some RF hazards also. And when we are the particular is there important safety of human beings. You are talking about 95 gigahertz. Teragigahertz applications, you see that these frequencies are very hazardous, so human safety also, so that things have to be considered. So these are the basically universals, phase transmissions formula when we take, and that how we are calculating these things. Basically, S2 in the shape of S21. Basically, the shape of this, measurement given by S21, we are considering this path loss, and then the gain of the device under test, and the gain of the probe. So we can link this this one S21 with respect to this power devices and power of the probe, and the path loss we can give in a 20 log lambda 0.4 pi distance. So S21 is directly linked to the gain device probe distance calculation. These are standard formulas which were earlier also there, and now for this future generation also we can calculate this path loss. And when we are talking about this antenna gains, yes, we have certain methods same as we were existing for earlier generations. They will hold good. First of all, we will calibrate the systems with the system calibrations. We are calculating with help of the gain of the probe, that is the standard gain of the gain of the standard probes, and then we gain of the reference. And second measurements, we are putting this path loss will be same, and then the gain of the probe will same. And now the gain of the reference, we will change this gain of reference with the device under test. So the gain determination we will do, S21 measure, this difference will come, and gain reference will be same, and the path loss 1 and path loss difference in the two measurement if there it is. So these are the standard things which will be helping to understand the antenna gains. But this is for the general standard. I'm taking on a probe, but we can understand when these types of antenna, when there will be massive antenna. For example, it is area of 100 antennas, and how other antennas are going to be when we are going to test one antenna. What will be the, what should be the scenario for another? So modern facilities will come with a lot of processing systems which will do all that automatically controlled, and that's why the future antenna measurement systems will be very precise and very very delicate and very complex to handle. So here we are using, am I audible please? Hello? 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 Am I audible please?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. So here if we see now, we are using that, we can use the different types of probes, horn types of probes, and we can have the patch type of things or dipole things. So those types of the probes have the different functioning, they may not have the same results. So they may have the different types of results. So electrical field at that particular point will be different. So it should be very important that we have to do a comparison study that which probe we have to use and what is the optimum probe for our designs. So this I have completed, and now I will just put some things on the environmental qualification for antenna systems. So as we were discussing that whenever some antenna systems are their prototype done well, and then the fabrication is done and it is tested well, then after that it has to be deployed on the certain applications. So this is very important from the user point of view. For example, some antennas you can deploy on high altitudes of the application. Some antenna you are when you are deploying at somewhere on Leh or that type of high altitudes, and another when you are deploying on the very sea level, the performance requirement is different. That is very important. And low temperatures, if you see some antennas have to perform as minus 20 degrees, so we can see if we see the that coefficient of even copper, what patch you are using, that RT is equal to R01 plus alpha naught T. You see that RT characteristics and other things, inductance effect. Not induction, basically the resistive and conductive effects, they vary with the low temperatures. And particularly when you are using this, microstrip antenna, patched antenna. So when you are using it, the soldering, it is important, the soldering types, sometime at the low temperatures, that shrinkage coefficient of that copper and the tin, that differs, and sometimes it leaves a dry solder. So these are the very small points which are very important but about the particular performance of antenna. Then condemnation of the fluid, you can use your antenna system for the applications, just like mines applications, and somewhere your antenna can be deployed in the rain. Your antenna directly, you are putting antenna in rain or hailing or icings. So these things are very important. Why it is important? Because if you see water, in case of water, yes. Suppose you have designed one antenna and you are directly putting in somewhere applications, and the water is logged inside this. So when the water has been logged, we can see that relative permittivity of waters, which can be somewhere 78. We can understand how difference it will create whenever the water has been logged and inside a substrate and it is bearing some layer of substrate and other things. Entirely your performance will be different. Like, for example, you have spacer fabric-based antennas are there. So what happens? They will immediately dry up from such waters. But there are some fleece fabric-based antennas are there, which will observe the water for long extent, and their performance will be so different. And there will be, so therefore, it is very important that how my system is working in such a scenario, just like rains, and like that hailings and icings, how some snow has come and it has fitted on your antenna systems. Now it has become, say, a micro layer surroundings of that antenna. It's not just a free environment, but about the antenna, it is just covered with kinds of artificial radome types of things. So like that also, whenever our system, when antennas are to be put somewhere in radome, then there is this classical study that how many times it has been found out that my antenna, when it has been found very on certain target, for example, it has been put on near some aircraft radome, the radiation patterns has been changed. So I just want to share, we were going to test one antenna. It was very nicely tested, very nicely fabricated and tested for all these tests. But after that, we have to put these antennas and for the SAR applications, and we just find out some location where this antenna should not be damaged if the aircraft get crashed. So we did not put in the top of the aircraft. We just try to helicopter discussion. So we put in some of the sides so that it should not crash. So now then when we started to measure the practical results, then we found that this antenna, because it was in the vicinity of that metallic structure of the helicopter, so that side the radiation pattern entirely shifted. They become another, not only those parameters, but because it becomes a one side of this metallic space, that they have affected the main lobe structure on another side. So main lobe and side lobes, what was the performance we were expecting it in a open environment, that has entirely changed. So those things are very important from the deployment point of views. And if there are, this is another area of the qualification of antenna. Of course, this is important. So then there are some standard, military standard 810 is there, GSS Pentamet is there. So there are standard which that how the antenna has to work in sand, industry environment, how it has to work in the rain and other things. So as we discussed in during this antenna designs, when we will talk about 5th generation to 6th, we will talk about the terahertz frequencies. So main thing is that efficient material that we need at a higher end of gigahertz if you talk about the terahertz. So this will be one of the most interesting studies of the choosing of the proper materials, nanomaterials or other things. This will be more changes and this is very challenging things also, and a lot of scopes for the publications. And then there will be precision manufacturing facility needed at these frequency bands. So the frequency, the antenna manufacturing, what we are considering in date of today, in the future, it will not be there. The precision measurements of designing antenna of micrometer size and ensuring their integrity of the sizes, then combining them to handle the higher power of the capacity, that precision manufacturing facilities, this will be another of the interesting things. Then the adequate test facility for these frequency bands, it will be also the world, and this is a very advanced types of test facilities are required and precision measurements, because the antenna, we will not have the antenna, a single antenna of 95 gigahertz somewhere. It will be a combination of antenna. There will be smart antennas and smartly controlled for their polarization, vertical polarization, horizontal polarizations, and when we are talking about cellular polarizations, and the antennas which could dynamically be controlled for these things. So here, I will just go that how, when we are going to design some antenna from practical points of view, then how it should be taken up, so that it should be a successful antenna for industrial applications. So first of all, we should have the concepts, and if we see from the academics point of view, also I just want to cover also here also. So these, every aspect you can have some of the good publications. If you see, there is a lot of already the work has been done. If you select some of them, and if you take some qualification aspects of this antenna system, if you say some antenna, if you take and you can come to some comparison study, you take some antenna and you see this performance at 20 gigahertz on ambient temperatures, then you go for that, how this antenna is performing at minus temperatures, and when this antenna is going to perform at high temperature, how is the humid, when how the rain has effect, and whenever it is some snow has contaminated on it, then what types of behavior antenna can. So these all things can, if you really do that type of work and some modeling, I think this can give you beautiful publications. So here also, as I discussed earlier, that same material comparison, what you're doing with copper, with graphene, and at high capacity, so they are affecting what are the requirements of different substrate and how it is affecting. What are the capacities? Things will change. If you see the equivalent models of the microstrip antennas, then all this antenna is going to be behaving different. There are things you can take into the considerations. So, am I able? So I'm coming to some design process. Is it audible or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this design process, yes, then when we design any antenna, then these all steps of the designing of antenna will come in consideration, and each of most of these stages can give you beautiful positions when we are defining the concept of antenna for what purpose. Now we have to see the antenna. We are talking about the 5th generation networks or 6th generation networks, for what application it has to be there. So we should have a good concepts of 1 second. What is some messages?
I think there is one query from Madam Jyoti. You have
Yes,
raised
yes.
your hand. Is there any query?
Yes. Yeah, you can ask the question in between. Yes.
I think by mistake she has raised her hand.
No problem. Okay. Okay. So I think my screen is visible. It is being shared.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay. So while the designing of antennas, the first of all, we have to understand the concept that what is the purpose of the antenna, for what application it is required. So we should understand the clear idea about the concepts. So when we are talking about the concepts, then we should be aware of the technical specifications for what purpose is required, so that should take. So if you see this has been part in preliminary design views. So concept is that what type of antenna is required and what types of technologies to. Then later on we see the technology, that how we have to materialize this antenna, what type of technology shall be used, and what types of fabrication things be there, what types of tools are required for simulate it, what mathematics is required to design it, and other things. So later on we will design it properly and it will be fabricated and tested and simulations, and after the qualification and then documentations. And there's when you are going to design this antenna particular realizations, then for we have to see at stability for bulk production and the particular deployment for the system, and particular its evaluation at things at the target. So particular target applications where it is to be there, it has to be worked. I think most of things I have covered, and now we can have a session on some questions and doubts, and if something is left, we can talk.
So
We can.
the house is open for queries. If any questions, you can ask.
Any of the participant, if there is any question, you can ask.
Antenna can be simulated in a ST Micro Studio and also in SFSS.
What is there?
You want to ask something?
Antenna can be, no, somebody is asking some question. Can you message me? Actually, I think it is not your audible. Can you message me?
Yeah.
I can just, yeah, I can just, just put me, you can just message me there. Then what is your doubt? Then you can.
Then I just have one query, Manoj, that if we want to pursue antenna design in 5G communication support for millimeter wave, so do we have can say simulation facilities we can have in our simulators, but do we have fabrication facilities for those antennas and testing facilities specifically above 40 gigahertz?
Yes, ma'am. That is a big. That is what. Yes, that is a big challenge, and particularly I think for the people who are working in antenna design, because at the end we have to see the standard international standard of elsewhere IEEE transaction for the Europe and other where they have the facility and we don't have facility. So yes, it is true that of course there are some facilities around 60 or 70 gigahertz at LRD Bangalore, DRDO labs, but ISC Bangalore also I think, but that this is really a very serious matter, because honestly speaking, we don't have sufficient facilities.
So do they basically provide facility to fabricate antenna for outsiders?
They, yes, on the specific cases, mean it's, if it is a general, it cannot mean they are already busy with the facility, but if it is really some very exceptional case, we can that is possible till some extent, not normally. So that is really a difficulty, because from academic points of view, I think it is really a requirement that this type of facility should be established somewhere, and somewhere particularly for it should work up to somewhere on the terahertz.
Does Ghaziabad have any facility related to this antenna fabrication and testing for high frequencies?
Which one?
Well, Ghaziabad?
Well, Ghaziabad has a facility up to 40 gigahertz, I think, not more than that.
Up to 40 gigahertz. Okay.
Yes, they don't have more, because they're mostly the work is defense related and L band and C band, so they have sufficient work in that only. These types of work now 5G we are talking. This work is some of the advanced aircraft to aircraft connectivity and other things. So, but the volume of work is not that much. So that's why the reason they are not having. Well, Ghaziabad up to they are not having this. If you talk about the tera gigahertz, I think only the simulations and these mathematical things, I think that is only the limitation. We are restricted there only. That is the problem.
So one participant is asking in the chat box, simulations are available in softwares, HFSS and CST both?
Yes,
5G
yes.
and above?
Yes. I'm not much sure of HFSS, but yes, CST, yes, you can do it.
I just
CST
want-
up to 300 gigahertz, yes. I have seen that
Okay.
much, yes.
So,
You can use it
as we increase the frequency of our antenna design for simulation, obviously our system requirement will also increase.
Which one, ma'am?
Suppose we are running some simulation in HFSS or CST for high frequencies,
Okay.
40 and above gigahertz frequencies. So our system requirement will be
Yes. That's very interesting, ma'am. That is very interesting. If we see, if you have used CST Microwave Studio, there is a mesh size, because that whenever the size is becoming less, we have to analyze this antenna in very micro level.
Yeah.
So the requirement of mesh will be very high. If you simulate one antenna from 2 to 4 gigahertz, and the same antenna, if you want to simulate somewhere on 55 to 70 or somewhere 90, the requirements will be entirely different. Yes, you need a very good system with a proper hardware. So their interesting is that the requirement is there. If we don't have that exactly system right now, then we can do it in piece. For example, if you have antenna and you want to study it from 70 to 80, 75 gigahertz, so you can take small from 70 to 71.5, like that you can do in piecemeal and you can integrate.
Small
that is the way.
Simulations can be done, but if you want to have a large frequency band variations, then it is very difficult for our normal systems to simulate those.
Yes, that is very challenging things. That's what I was thinking, that for this for 6G now, because there will be, for the researcher, there will be no pressure to publish the good papers, but we don't have good measurement facilities, and these measurements, and particularly even the simulation, there were very good systems.
So one more query from my side. 3D printed antennas, these are very much popular nowadays. But is there any material available for which we can have this high frequency antennas on 3D printed materials?
I think we were expecting something graphene. I am not much sure, because I have not gone toward that side that much. Yes, 3D. I'm not sure whether graphene is going to help or something is there. I will just work it out, because some of my friends are working over this on material. So if some input is there, I will just work and come back.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Any other question from any of the participants? So I don't think there is some question. So thank you so much, Manoj, for such an informative session.
So, thank you very much for inviting me, ma'am. It was really nice interactions. So kind of you.
Thank you so much. So I hope the participants will get benefited. If anybody who is interested in antenna design for these future technologies, they will definitely look into these PPTs. And
I have given my mail also. So if something is requirement and some specific requirement of some research or some antenna testing, yes, I will try to help whatsoever I can do.
Yeah. So you have your mail ID on your PPT. I'll just submit this PPT in Google Classroom, so all the participants will get that PPT from there. So is it okay with you if I'll share these PPTs with them?
Yes, ma'am. There's no problem.
Okay.
That's okay, fine.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.